Hello chaps, and welcome to my build update number 3 for the Airfix 1/72 scale Vickers Wellington B.III. This is the old original 1959 tooling in a 1975 boxing. This is my second entry into the Bomber Command buddy build, being hosted by me on here and on Facebook. This is covering decals, weathering and final assembly. So the decals, with them being 43 years old, needed to be bleached in the sun, so I left them for 2 weeks in a window, and they were really dark yellow, but as you can see from this slide, it kind of went to a pale yellow. I then sealed them with a Tester's decal bonder and allowed that to dry for about 36 hours to set, and then I moved on with decaling. Got all my stuff together to apply decals. The first one I applied was the starboard side Roundel, and to my surprise it slid off the backing paper nicely and went down okay. Very thick though. And they're the port side fuselage squadron markings, etc., and the serial number. And as you can see, it looks like they look like a piece of tarpaulin slapped on the side of the airframe. So there's all the decals down. Couple of views now to show you them in place. Only 10 decals in total, so not a lot of sweating to do on that. Because there was some silvering, I painted over the silvering with black paint. You see those fuselage letters, there's no silvering showing there. I then moved on to priming all the small parts, put them on cocktail sticks, let that dry, and then painted them. They're the exhaust and cannons, etc. They're the propeller blades and the wheels. And when that was all dry, I gave them all a gloss clear coat and then sealed the decals in with the gloss clear coat as well. I let that dry overnight, and then it was on to doing the weathering stage. So using odorless mineral spirits and some black and white oil paint, I mixed a grey oil wash, put that liberally all over the aircraft, top and bottom, and I let that set for about an hour and a half, then rubbed off the excess, and I did the same with all the parts. There's all the wheel bay doors, oleo struts, etc., bombs and propellers, and here's some pictures showing the excess rubbed off, and you can see it's highlighted the sort of geodetic airframe work, and it's left some tonal variation on that black. On the upside you can see again, and if you don't like what it looks like, you can rub off the excess, more of it. There you see some tonal variation down the fuselage sides there, and on the rear end there you see the geodetic framework on the rudder. And then next I moved on to doing some chipping. I used some acrylic metal coloured chrome. Did the leading edges. The leading edges of the metal, the airframe were metal. The rest of it was doped linen. And then created a wash out of rust, brown and black detail washes to do some tonal variation, sort of a reddish brown tint here and there. And applied that in various areas around the model. And there it is, you can see on the cowl in there, the panel lines are highlighted with it. And then after that, I gave sealed everything in with a final flat clear coat. That's all the peripheral parts ready for assembly now, and there's the model. Took a few photographs of the model with its final flat coat. Thought it looked okay, not bad for an old tooling. The plastic's really bad, the detail's really poor, and not a lot of parts supplied with its help and handset. So after doing that, I then removed the masks from the canopy and the front gun, and then the two rear fuselage windows and the rear gun turret. All the masking's off, and there, that view, you can see how ridiculous the machine guns look. They're massive, look like Lego toy guns. I then moved the liquid masking off the wingtip lights, starboard, and that's the port side red. And then after that, I removed the masking off the bomber's spotting window there on the underside of the fuselage. I then put in the oleo struts for the wheels, and I scratch built those support struts. I then glued in the tail wheel. I didn't use the kit wheel, it was really poor, so I used a 148 Spitfire wheel, which looks similar. After that, I glued on the propellers. They spin. I then glued on the wheels. That's the port side wheel and the port side exhaust, and that tube on the wing, I don't know what it is, but I'm guessing it could be a fuel dumping tube. And that's the exhaust wheel and the fuel dumping tube in place on the starboard side wing. Then I took the 4 extra bomb racks that came with the Halifax kit, stuck them to some plastic, painted those. I used 3 of them down the centre compartment, and that raised the 3 centre bombs up. Glued the rest of the bombs in, and then I moved on to gluing the wheel bay doors in. That's the starboard side wheel bay doors, and that's the port side wheel bay doors. So the assembly's moving along now, not much left to do. The bomb bay doors in place, 24 separate segments that I created. And this kit didn't come with a UHF antenna rail. You see them on the photographs of this model, so I scratch built that. And I scratch built the pitot tube. And that was followed by gluing in the 2 fuselage side window cannons, 2mm diameter at 72 scale, equates to 144mm, which is getting close to 6-inch diameter for a 303-inch Browning. Not realistic. And then I glued in the antenna there, the radome behind it, and the clear spotters window there. And then I scratch built a couple of rudder limiters there, plus the posts there for mounting the antenna cables too. Next I moved on to putting some mud staining around the rear wheel, and then did it around the starboard side wheel and airframe there, some mud staining, and then did it to the port side wheel and around that wheel bay area as well. And then I glued in the 2 strips of antenna cable. One goes to the top of the aerial and one glues to the side of the fuselage where the radio operators sits. I then mixed some brown and black to do staining for around the engine cowlings there. Simulate oil and soot staining from the engines. I then used that same mix, really thinned down, 75% with thinners, and I used it again to do exhaust staining there, and then I used the sable paint thinned down to simulate lead deposits on top of that exhaust staining. And the last thing I did was to do some streaking, created some different colour washes and did streaking all over the plane. And that was it. That was the end of this build, guys. So thanks for following along. Thanks for all your comments, much appreciated. And the next video for this build will be the final reveal. So until then, guys, Talio, chocks away.
Bye.